Hello everyone, and welcome back to Random Infotainment. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we bring you the most chilling horror stories every week. Tonight, I have something truly terrifying for you. This is a story about a perfect apartment with an impossible price, a room that whispers in the dark, and a closet that should never, ever be opened. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get comfortable. Because once you step into the whisper room, there's no going back. Let's begin. The apartment was perfect. That's what Sarah kept telling herself as she signed the lease, even as the landlord's hand trembled slightly while passing her the keys. Even as he mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that the previous tenant had left, rather suddenly. "It's the price," he'd said, avoiding her eyes. "In this neighborhood for this space, you won't find better." He was right. The rent was criminally low for a two-bedroom in the city center. Sarah had stopped questioning her good fortune by the time she moved in her first box. The apartment had beautiful crown molding and large windows that let in pools of golden sunlight. The floors were original hardwood, scuffed but warm. Everything was perfect except for the second bedroom, which Sarah planned to use as an office. That room was different. Not in any way she could articulate to her friends when they helped her move in. It was just quieter. Sound seemed to die at the threshold. Her footsteps, so loud and echoing everywhere else, became muffled the moment she crossed into that space. Even her breathing sounded distant, as if she were hearing it underwater. "Weird acoustics," her friend Marcus had said, clapping his hands to test the echo. The sound fell flat, absorbed by something unseen. He'd frowned but said nothing else. Sarah set up her desk facing the window, determined not to be superstitious. She was a rational person, a graduate student in biology. She didn't believe in bad energy or haunted rooms or whatever nonsense people might suggest. The first week was fine. She worked in the office during the day, typing her dissertation, pausing occasionally to stare out at the street below. But she noticed she never stayed past sunset. Some unconscious instinct always drew her out before the shadows grew too long. It wasn't fear, she told herself, just natural preference for working during daylight hours. The second week she had to work late. A deadline loomed and she'd lost track of time, her fingers flying across the keyboard. When she finally looked up, night had fallen completely. The window showed only her own reflection against the darkness, pale and somehow unfamiliar. The room felt different at night, the air heavier, expectant. That's when she heard it. A whisper, not words exactly, more like the shape of words, the breath of speech without meaning. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, from inside the walls themselves. Sarah froze, her hands hovering over the keyboard. Silence. She waited, heart hammering. Nothing, just old building sounds, she told herself, pipes and settling foundations. She saved her work and left the room, closing the door firmly behind her. In the living room, with the TV on and lights blazing, it was easy to dismiss. Old buildings made noise, everyone knew that. But the whispers came back. Always at night, always in that room. Sometimes they sounded like conversation, multiple voices overlapping in a language she couldn't quite identify. Sometimes it was just one voice, low and insistent, speaking inches from her ear even though she was completely alone. The words never quite formed. They hovered at the edge of comprehension, teasing, maddening. Sarah started working in the living room. She kept the office door closed. She tried to ignore the way the doorknob was always cold to the touch, even on the warmest days, as if the room beyond were somehow refrigerated. She stopped mentioning it to friends. How could she explain something she didn't understand herself? 3 weeks in, she woke at 3 a.m. to find the office door standing open. She lived alone. She knew she'd closed it. The hallway stretched before her, and through the doorway she could see her desk illuminated by moonlight. Empty. Normal. Except for the whispers, louder now, more urgent. They pulled at her, a tide of sound without words. A compulsion she couldn't name made her feet move toward the doorway. Some part of her needed to know, needed to understand what was calling to her night after night. Sarah got up. She had to know. She walked to the threshold and stopped. The whispers crescendoed, a dozen voices now, 100, all speaking at once in desperate, incomprehensible pleas. The air in the room felt thick, resistant, like pushing through water. She took one step inside. The whispers stopped. In the sudden silence, she heard something else. Breathing, not hers, heavy, labored, coming from somewhere in the darkness. The sound of lungs that worked too hard, breath that rattled with effort. Coming from the closet she'd never opened, had never even thought about opening. The closet door was cracked open just slightly. Through the gap she saw darkness, absolute darkness, darker than the mere absence of light. A darkness that moved, that breathed, that watched. Sarah's hand reached for the light switch. She never made it. The darkness poured out. It wasn't shadows. Shadows were the absence of something. This was presence, thick and suffocating, with weight and intention. It moved across the floor like oil, like smoke, like 1,000 black fingers reaching, grasping, hungry. The whispers returned, deafening now, and she understood that they weren't words at all but screams, compressed and distorted by distance or time or something else entirely. They were warnings. They were pleas. They were the voices of everyone who had come before. Sarah ran. She slammed the office door behind her, dragged her bookshelf in front of it, grabbed her keys and phone, and fled her apartment without looking back. Behind her, she heard the door rattling, something pushing against it from the other side. She called the landlord from her car. He answered on the first ring as if he'd been expecting her call. "The room," she gasped. "There's something in the room." A long pause, then quietly, "Did you open the closet?" "No, but—" "Then you're fine." His voice carried a weight of exhausted knowledge. "Never open the closet, that's the rule, everyone who opens it. Well, that's why the rent is so low, that's why the previous tenant left suddenly." Another pause. "That's why the tenant before her disappeared." Sarah never went back. She forfeited her deposit, abandoned her furniture, let the landlord keep everything. She'd rather lose it all than spend another moment in that place. Sometimes, though late at night, she still hears them. The whispers, fainter now but persistent, following her, waiting. Because she had taken one step inside, and in that room that was enough. The darkness had marked her, and what the darkness marks it never forgets. And that's where our story ends? Or does it? Because Sarah learned the hard way that some places leave their mark on you forever. Some doors, once approached, can never truly be closed again. What would you have done? Would you have opened that closet? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have your own creepy apartment stories or unexplained experiences, I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends who love a good scare. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next terrifying tale. Check out the links in the description for more horror stories, and follow us on your social media for updates and behind-the-scenes content. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your lights on, and whatever you do, never open the closet. Sweet dreams, if you dare. Random Infotainment signing off.